Ethiopia plans to sell power to Sudan, Yemen, Kenya, and even Egypt, with whom it is at odds over the Nile's waters as it ramps up power production to become a major exporter in the continent. The new projects will not only serve Ethiopia, but Sudan and Egypt as well. These other two countries depend on the Nile River for their water, although 85% of the river flows in Ethiopia. The dam's construction is expected to create up to 12,000 jobs. It aims to produce 20,000 megawatts of power within the next 10 years, part of a plan to spend $12 billion over the next 25 years to raise power generating capacity. But now the construction of the 6.45 gigawatts Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has moved Ethiopia up the electricity provider's scale. A second filling of the dam was done back in July. 6 of the 9 upstream countries, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Burundi, have signed a new deal, stripping Egypt of its veto power and agreeing to renegotiate how much water each country is entitled to. This brings a new dimension to the conversation surrounding the dam. Today, we're looking at Ethiopia's electricity ambition. I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun. Welcome. This is Business Edge. Joining me from Nairobi, Kenya is James Mbugua. He is a finance and legal expert. James, welcome to Business Edge again. Thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start in terms of what the situation of electricity was in Ethiopia and in the general region before the coming of the dam. Paint us a picture.
Well, East Africa in general and as well as Africa, I think, in general, has always had a power deficit, not for lack of generational capacity, but for the fact that it has not been exploited, or rather the right investment or the right amount of investment has not been put in. So what has occurred is that because in Africa, a lot of people are living in rural areas, there has never been seen the need to invest in generational capacity to extend this power to outer regions in the rural areas that we may talk about. Now, Ethiopia wants to do 5,000 megawatts of electricity. Now, that is equivalent to probably some of the biggest dams in the world, hydro, that is to speak of. I mean, you can only think of Hoover, the likes of the dams in the Seven Gorges in China, and they want to sell this power. But Egypt wants, Egypt and Sudan do not like this because they feel the water to generate that power will mean that there is slower downfall towards the river that ends up in the Blue Nile and the White Nile that ends up in Sudan and in Egypt. So there's quite a lot of conflict about that.
All right, so we're seeing the estimated cost of the dam is close to about $5 billion. Already now we know it has sort of run over budget and run in different phases, has run over schedule in different phases of the dam. And that $5 billion is about 7% of the 2016 Ethiopian gross national product. If Ethiopia went to the international markets, they likely would have gotten funding for this project from development partners and international lenders. But Ethiopia decided to self-fund. Why do you think Ethiopia decided to self-fund this project?
Well, you do know Ethiopia is the first country that in probably in Africa that was never colonized. They do have a sense of independence, not even granted, but that they feel that they have had it. The Orthodox Church is rather than the Roman Catholic Church, and it was set up in Ethiopia in the first place. But there also has been the feeling that Egypt and Sudan have unfairly benefited from Ethiopia being a part of the source of the Nile, and that Ethiopia has been held to a treaty that was signed in 1922 when Ethiopia or Egypt or even Sudan were not recognized as states. In the sense of the word that a state is recognized by in an international law by in terms of territory, in terms of the recognition by the United Nations, in terms of having a population, in terms of So the Ethiopia feels that it was bound to a treaty that it was not, or that its people were not party to. And it feels that it has a right to exploit its waters as it should, and as it feels should be necessary. And therefore, this is why we're even seeing a lot of skirmishes at the borders, even with the Tigrays, because there is a lot of interest in how the Nile waters will be used. And they could lead up to a full-scale war.
And interesting enough, as a legal expert, I want to get your thoughts on this. As you said, Ethiopia and some of the other countries felt that they were locked into a treaty, that they were not adequately represented when Egypt was given the power to veto decisions regarding the Nile water. Now they've come together to strip Egypt of that veto, and of course Egypt is not going to just sit down and agree to this. What are the legal ramifications of this decision that these 6 upstream countries have taken in signing a new deal that strips Egypt of its veto power regarding the Nile River?
Well, under international law, public international law, as we call it, a state is only bound to the treaties that it has signed on to, or that it is a party to. So Egypt may be a party to the treaty of 1922, in the sense of Egypt as it was constituted or as it was recognized at that time. However, the people who now claim they got independence from the British Empire may say that they did not sign up to that kind of agreement. So what this needs to do, and I think it already has done, is to be taken to the International Court of Justice. International Court of Justice, and in terms of even the establishing law, its treaty, Article 38, provides for how the law shall be found. And I think there, part of this will be found. But obviously, the cases are strong on both sides. Ethiopia says these are our waters. We need to use them. We cannot be we cannot be told we cannot use these waters. And then we have the Aswan High Dam down the river in Egypt, where they irrigate and they farm and they made millions and billions of money from using that. So it is an issue for international, public international law. And I think that is where we will head if we will not resolve this by way of armed conflict. I think it will be resolved by way of public international law.
Yes, and we are seeing intermediary and mediation efforts coming from the UN, the AU, the US, and other parties as well. In late July, the Sudanese irrigation minister Yasir Abbas said that Sudan will not resume negotiations with the previous methodology that they've been using to address this issue. He said Sudan is still asking for an international quartet in the negotiations, but that they want exchange of information on the filling and operation of the dam, and that is essential. He also said that the dam would be beneficial to Sudan if information on it is exchanged in accordance with a legally binding agreement. So it seems like we're seeing a change in temperature from Sudan. They do acknowledge that there could be benefit from them partnering with Ethiopia, or at least not standing in the way of Ethiopia continuing with the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. In terms of the legally binding agreement, what kind of information is Sudan looking at, possibly in order to make its decision in whether or not they go ahead and they agree to this?
Well, let's say this first of all. Sudan has only just been readmitted back into the fold. The Sudan was under sanctions from the United States and by extension the UN for a long time since 1998, when it was said that even Osama bin Laden used to operate from there. There is a chemical attack that happened under Bill Clinton's regime. So Sudan has been in the isolation and the dogs. We have, however, seen during the Donald Trump regime, where Sudan has renounced some of its practices, has gone ahead and signed a deal between itself, the United States, and Israel, has recognized Israel as a state, and then after that, we have seen the sanctions that were against Sudan being raised and they will be removed so Sudan can even operate. Before you could not even bring or rather remove US dollars out of the country. Now they're able to trade and operate in the free markets. So I think, to be honest, this is an issue that has to do with more of geopolitical interests. Sudan had even, in the first instance, when Ethiopia talked about the building these dams, had said that would help them. It is only now when they were put in a position where they have to, first of all, renounce that old situation. Secondly, sign an agreement for them to be able to be sanction free, say they recognize Israel and all that. So, I mean, there are a lot of political dynamics here. And I can assure you, we will see a lot more interesting developments in this region.
And I think we will. And when you talk about the geopolitics of the region, let me just ask you now, in terms of the electricity exporting potential of the dam, what do you think the wider regional benefit is? Because we can focus on the benefit to Ethiopia, jobs being created, electricity to the rural areas, but Ethiopia is not doing this just for themselves. They want to sell electricity to the wider region. So what is the benefit? Even if it's a geopolitical conversation, what benefits are there for Ethiopia in terms of Ethiopia selling from the dam?
Of course, is the money. Money in terms of in dollar terms, a lot of deals to do with purchase of electricity are usually negotiated in dollar terms, just because of the fact that you may have to go to the London International Court of Arbitration or the New York Court of Arbitration, and therefore you do certain things. But now, to your question, the interest of Ethiopia is to sell this power. Ethiopia, the first customer for them to go ahead with this project, the first customer they got in touch with was Kenya. And they said, will you be able to take up 400 megawatts? Because we will not build this dam until you assure us that you will be able to evacuate 400 megawatts from this dam, Gibe 3. So Kenya said, yeah, we will evacuate that 400 megawatts. And then and also a strange thing was that the power lines that were to be built from that power project, the power dam or the power plant, coming to Kenya, normally you see these long high tension lines that have to take power all the way from, let's say, Lagos to Abuja to Ibadan. You use very high tension, high voltage cables, which use alternating power. But this one is being done in direct current. It's not alternating current. It is to come from Ethiopia as 2,000 megawatts. Then when it lands here, we have to distribute another 400 to Tanzania. We have to distribute another 400 to Rwanda. And then we also are building a line through to Zambia. So Ethiopia, its power play is basically to be able to provide power because those power will be needed.
Yeah.
So that is what Ethiopia, it is the dollars.
All right, it's financial for them. So aside from financial, as we talked about, 20,000 megawatts of power within the next 10 years, part of a plan to spend $12 billion over 25 years in order to raise the power generating capacity. 12,000 indirect and direct jobs that are being tied to this dam. So we can see that the potential for the dam is obvious. For Ethiopia, particularly now, what are the short and long-term benefits to this? Rural electrification for its rural areas as well, being able to get more internet penetration for its citizens and things. What are you seeing as the short and long-term benefits of this project?
Well, okay, the short-term bonus, like I've said, will probably be them getting the commercial dollars that are coming in as a foreign exchange or foreign direct currency. Now, obviously, power, when you control power, you also have a lot of power, metaphorically speaking. In Ethiopia, by the fact that it can actually ramp up this kind of power to a lot of megawatts. It is only competing in terms of hydro with the Congo. In the Congo, the South Africans have also landed there. They are
James,
really
James, can you raise your camera just a bit for us? Okay, there we go.
Okay, yes.
All right, continue.
Yes. So, so Ethiopia wants to get this power into a commercial network where it can get paid. Even as we look at the fact that in the Congo River, which is the second mightiest river in the world after the Amazon in South America, and has a lot of hydropotential power, the South Africans have learned and they want to do what they call the Grand Inga 3. So Ethiopia has interest to see that it evacuates, it builds, and it is able to evacuate and sell this power before it can get other competition. So they want to go ahead, and I think that is their power play. They do want to get this hydro out there before anybody else, especially in the DRC. What is the Congo Basin gets power going.
Okay, so finally, I'm going to ask, this is a very ambitious project. We're seeing it in the works. As we said earlier, a second filling of the dam has happened. Apparently not as much as was anticipated was actually put in, but a second filling. There are conversations going on about the negotiations with the international quartet. But overall, what do you make of Ethiopia's ambitions and its plans regarding electricity? Are they on the right path, both internally for themselves as a country and regionally as well, because the benefits will extend beyond Ethiopia? Is it too ambitious? In the next 10 years, do you think they will have achieved what they want to achieve? We also see the construction of a 1,300 kilometer, 500 kV transmission interconnector to Kenya, as you mentioned as well. We're also seeing that they've secured a multi-million-dollar deal with France. There's another project, 3,000 kilometers, 500 kV line linking Ethiopia with Sudan and Egypt is also being planned. Is this too ambitious, or is this just the right amount of ambition?
Well, it is not too ambitious because, if they can actually finance it or get the financing to do it, it is not too much because think about it. We look at what kind of power some of the African countries are producing, and in terms of power capacity. And you look at Kenya, which Kenya is even we're exploiting geothermal. We are doing about 3,000 megawatts power. You go to Nigeria. Nigeria has a lot of power. The mighty Niger passes through there. Nigeria can afford to even put up nuclear power plants. It has oil. You can put, but you look at the capacity of it is. I think they are not doing more. You guys are not doing more than 5,000 or 6,000 mega. Yeah. So the potential and even the customer base is there, and for us to even become manufacturers, the potential is there. We can do it. I don't know how Ethiopia plans to market it, but I know for a fact that it has signed deals with 3 countries. That is Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda, and it is a cheap power. So let's see as far as the money it gets, and as far as how it uses that to engage in relations with its neighbors, translates into clout in the region.
All right, James, we'll leave it at that. We know there is a lot more because the conversation around the negotiations is still a very viable one. So we will be touching base. James Mbugua from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you as always for joining me on Business Edge.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. So there is calls, or rather there are calls for an international quartet of mediators to be involved in the conversation around the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Ethiopia is moving full steam ahead, and other countries in the region seem to be falling in line, but you're having a holdouts from Sudan and Egypt. What will the future of this multi-billion-dollar deal be, and the potential for electricity in the region? This could really work towards lighting up East Africa. You're watching Business Edge, and right now we have news NC4 to watch. And let's quickly give you a few stories we're keeping our eyes on. We start in the western part of the continent, where Nigeria has generated a total of 512.3 billion naira for value-added tax in the second quarter of the year. Now, data from the National Bureau of Statistics show that this was an increase from last quarter's 496.39 billion. The Q1 figure increased by 3.2% compared with that of Q1 2020. On a year-on-year basis, VAT revenue rose by 56.6%. Kenya's Trade Cabinet Secretary Betty Maina has announced that Kenya will start exporting avocados to South Korea in March 2022 as part of the country's horticultural business expansion strategy. Now, according to the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, the agency has drafted phytosanitary standards that exporters should meet to be able to ship to South Korea. The South African Property Owners Association is happy with the announcement by the eThekwini municipality that property owners worst affected by riots and vandalism in Greater Durban in July stand to get a rates rebate of up to 75%. The association CEO, Neil Gopal, said it is a positive step, but he did raise a warning that the construction mafia in KwaZulu-Natal may take advantage of the rebuilding efforts in the province. And finally, hackers stole crypto worth $610 million across 3 chains on Tuesday. Poly Network, a cross-chain protocol, reports that the attacks removed assets from Binance Chain, Ethereum, and the Polygon network. Now, blockchain data from the respective networks showed that the hackers stole about $273 million from Ethereum, $85 million in USD coin from the Polygon network, and $253 million from the Binance Smart Chain. The network said it would be pursuing legal action against the hackers in a bid to get back the stolen funds. And that's this edition of Business Edge. Head to our websites, follow us and subscribe on YouTube, and of course, download our mobile app on your Play Store and App Store to make sure you don't miss any of our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage of Africa, because we put Africa first. I'm Tolu Lokwe. Adilere Balogun. I'll see you next time.